Welcome back to the final Establish the Edge of the offseason before Mike Leone takes over for the Best Ball Bros. As always, I'm your host, John Daigle, joined today for a post-draft three-round rookie draft. We're not drafting Mookie Betts with our friends from the past. Sharp Football's Rich Rebar, Fantasy Points now, it's official, Theo Grimminger, and of course, legendary upsides Pat Kerrane. And I am on the clock first at 101, making it easy because I've been doing this show for 2 months now. No one cares about my opinion beyond this pick, since it is, in my mind, now that we officially have the Ashton Jeanty 106 draft capital, officially Jeanty 101 overall to the Raiders with no competition, unless you think Raheem Mostert, for whatever reason, is going to get goal line carries and perhaps stay healthy again. But for this next pick, Rich, I specifically picked you because, like Kerrane, you have been early, even in pre-draft, on the Travis Hunter upside. And now I'm curious what you were thinking at 102 overall.
If it's still just like a blanket top-down stance of like this is a wide open league, no team context, I still would lean to Marion Hampton here, just because I value like RB1 potential. It's the gift and the curse. I don't know if I'll have to say that on a show with Kerrane actually either, but the guys that have the capability to have like an elite running back season, like
I like the elite running backs.
Yeah, it's hard to
the
legendary upside, I guess I should say, the leg up. We're trying to get a leg up here, and he's one of those guys that has that profile, right? Like from a physical perspective, he already carried the workload 2 years at North Carolina, and even catching passes there as well. Got the draft capital, lands in a spot where it's a good offense with a coaching staff we know wants to run the football. There is like a potential Lucy with the football with Najee Harris being there. And, we did this with Trey Benson last year where people were like, we just got to wait out 1 year, James Conner. Hey, Jonathan Brooks gets drafted. We just got to wait out 1 year, Chuba Hubbard. And both those guys get extended. So like that does like actually exist in the range of outcomes. But if you were absolutely on the clock here, this would be a spot where I think you'd shop to QB needing gamers in your league that if we're operating under Superflex premises for Cam Ward. But I actually think on a blanket top-down stance, Cam Ward's kind of a trap here in a lot of leagues. So I'll go on Marion Hampton.
Hampton is off the clock for you, Theo. Again, this is a Superflex tight end premium league for everyone, 3 rounds. And so where do you think next at the 103?
I think you're going wide receiver at this spot, and I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer. I'm going to go Tet McMillan here. Travis Hunter is very, very enticing, and I think that the ceiling outcome for Hunter is probably higher than Tet McMillan. But when it comes to McMillan, I think the floor is really, really baked in with the landing spot. I think we're talking about a guy who's going to have 140 targets as a rookie, and I think he's got the potential to be 150, 160 target player in this offense, in this situation. We've seen Bryce Young hyper target receivers who were way, way, way less appealing than McMillan. All those Adam Thielen games and certainly his rookie season when Thielen got off to that super fast start. I trust Dave Canales and I trust Tet McMillan. And Travis Hunter, as appealing as he is, we still have this little bit of mystery in the back of our mind. Just how much defense is he going to play? How much exposure to injuries? I don't have that with Tet, but I think both are appropriate selections here with Hampton off the board.
Kerrane, would your 102, 103 have changed if you were picking in those spots?
I would probably take Hunter 102, which is what I'm going to do here. Mm-hmm. But I have them all in the same tier. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that, like when we were on Chip Chasing, Jacob Sanderson's initial take was kind of that Hunter was the clear 102. Ron Stewart was Hunter clear 102. And I have Hunter 102, but I don't think it's clear. I think Hampton, McMillan, even Ward, depending on kind of the quarterback situation that you're in, are totally fine to take at 102. But I mean, Hunter does have a ton of upside with, the fact that he went second is great. The fact that they traded up for him is so awesome. And then he gets the quarterback play and a well-designed offense, we assume. So the upside actually got higher, even though the chalk draft capital did come through. So I think they probably do play him both ways, but
it's because he didn't go to Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, he doesn't have to play with Kenny Pickett. I mean, that's how big is that? so yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see that they may actually let this guy play both ways, and probably almost like need to, given that the capital they gave up. Like there's no point in trading up to 2 to take a cornerback or to take a a really strong wide receiver prospect, but frankly not as strong as Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison last year, I don't think. So having him play both ways is both fun and I think will help us unlock the offensive production that we need. So
this is why I hate the 105 as well, because this is how mostly every draft is going to fall. And then regardless, and maybe you don't think Cam Ward is a trap at 105 among this tier, Rich, but I feel like regardless in Superflex, you are going to take him by default, and he may not even be the correct pick. Like, I think I prefer, my heart wants Quinshon Judkins here instead, but I'm going to take Cam Ward, get him off the board. We've heard the spiel already from me the last couple of months about the Titans improving their offensive line. They went into, at least last offseason, wanting to be a pass-heavy team until they saw they had Mason Rudolph and could not be a pass-heavy team. And so I'm curious to see how that split will be this year. But with Cam Ward and upgraded O-line, I would imagine they come out firing. Rich.
Yeah, and I don't dislike Cam Ward either. I just think from the archetype of fantasy quarterback he is, he's probably not going to give you like an elite season. You're probably going to get more like QB2 that moonlights as a QB1. You hope that he can be like have like some seasons like CJ Stroud and Justin Herbert have had earlier in his career. That's kind of where I think like his like ceiling is. And then, you know, the one little caution I have if he's not going to be an elite fantasy scorer is just like we've seen like teams are now starting to eject on QBs earlier than ever. And that's so if you're not going to be a difference making like fantasy player, like I just kind of want to, because it used to be the old thing in Superflex leagues, like draft QBs, their currency. Well, we have not really seen that be the case. I mean, you look at the last 5 drafts, we've seen obviously 2021, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones, a first round capital completely blown up. The next year is Kenny Pickett, first round pick, completely blown up. Anthony Richardson, the year after that, it's completely blown up. I don't think anyone's lost more stock this dynasty offseason than Anthony Richardson. And then, you know, remains to be seen what happens, you know, with next year's class. But like Caleb Williams gonna be out of outs, man. If he don't play, like if you don't, he's literally floating on the Ben Johnson like cloud right now, because he would have dropped precipitously too if they didn't hire Ben Johnson. So I mean,
there's still been sell windows on some guys, but it's after year one. Like you got to make the decision after year one of if you're in or out, and that means you better have a liquid trade market in your league. Because if it's kind of if it's tough to pull off trades in any given year, and you're now with an asset that could lose a ton of value after his second season, maybe just take someone else if you don't believe in them.
And you see in a lot of these heroes, because we were kind of flippantly joking about it, like tongue in cheek before the show, but like sometimes you run these leagues too, where like people like refuse to sell quarterbacks cheaper too than what their value is. Like they completely hammer on the market price instead of what the landscape in the league is like. And it's just really hard to trade that way sometimes in these super flex leagues.
It's the least excited we've ever seen for drafters in Dynasty Superflex drafts with a 101 quarterback. It's wild. But I do think, like, I know Pat came on my pod, and we talked a little bit about Cam Ward, and I think he's got the gunslinger mentality. I think we'll know right away whether he's fantasy friendly or not. I don't think it's going to be one where he's sort of stuck in the middle. It's going to be either he becomes a real value here, or it's, we got this kind of purgatory value. I think it's going to become very clear.
That's what's interesting about Jackson Dart as well. And we'll get to him, I'm sure, later on in this draft. But his leash seems longer than Cam Ward's just because he's going to get the expense of not being seen full time, we assume, until the end of the year. But beyond that, we know Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are not long-term options either.
Yeah, I would say any of the picks, though, that we just made before the Cam Ward pick, if you're on the clock and you have those reservations about Cam Ward, like you need to be going through every roster that has a quarterback hole and at least knocking on their door and seeing, even if it's moving down one spot, a couple spots, it doesn't matter. Because I think like you guys, that's like that mini tier of the 3 skill players outside of Cam Ward are going to be like that pocket. You're going to have a preference of those 3 that varies, but those 3 guys, Hampton, Hunter, McMillan, are going to be like the 3 sandwich guys.
Totally. I do think that if you are in a liquid trade market generally and you're not getting any bites on Ward, it's fine to just take him at 5 and bet that he's going to get out there and be kind of a gunslinger. And like year 2 prices have been extreme on guys who are actually like more fun than people thought they would be. Like Daniel Jones, like, you got a haul for him.
Josh Allen.
Well,
I mean, Josh Allen is the one that kind of reset the market of like not letting QB slide. because like everyone was like kind of hated him.
Herbert
And
too.
Herbert was like that too, because Herbert was like, he was a foot in, foot out, because he was a huge Devy guy, and then kind of like was good at Oregon, and then kind of closed his books like kind of being lackluster. Everyone's like, we're out. And then he was going like 110, like 109, like in rookie drafts.
Totally. I mean, Stroud was worth a ton after his rookie year. I think Baker was like a 1-2 startup pick. So yeah, I mean, there's like value to gain here with Ward at 105. I don't want to be like overly cautious about it. It's just, it's kind of a boom bust quarterback pick.
I think also, just not to be too Ward centric here, guys, I think it's also the scarcity of the quarterbacks in this draft class is going to really, really help him, because the only guy that I think, spoiler alert, Jackson Dart's the only really, really appealing one left. So Ward has a leg up in that regard.
In that case, Theo, if it's a one quarterback rookie draft people are prepping for, where do you have Ward slotted into, since it's going to change drastically?
I still think with the lack of rushing upside, he's not a bet I'd really want to put a whole lot of money into in a single QB. I think end of the second, if you're quarterback needy, and that's really about the max I would pay.
All right, Rich. Well,
you have the quarterback leagues. I think there are only 2 quarterbacks that should be drafted. Everyone else should be off your board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah. I've already muted Shadur Sanders, so I'm not seeing any update on his dynasty stock. We got past that after night 1. I realized I couldn't do it. You have the responsibility, though, Rich, of the next tier of running backs that's going to be hotly debated for the next couple of weeks here. And so lead us off at 106.
I still would probably in a Superflex have Ward as being the tier break here, just because the other guys could profile as not 300 touch guys. Like we talked about the legendary upside, right? Like the guys that could profile to play every down, which we just don't get a lot of guys doing that anymore. And I think that's top 2 guys clearly are in that archetype. And then the rest, you kind of have to squint and hopefully some dominoes fall to have them fall that way. So I still, even though he didn't get probably the landing spot wasn't as good, I still have TreVeyon Henderson over Judkins, because I think from fantasy perspective, he doesn't need a lot of touches, where I think Judkins always will need a lot of touches, where TreVeyon Henderson, one, he's the explosive rushing profile, because he'll probably never be a 250 attempt guy, and maybe we luck box into some seasons where he can get there. And then just he changes the fabric of a receiving game. I do feel bad for Antonio Gibson, because I think he was good again last year, and he's been good like anytime he's got an opportunity to play in the NFL, but he just keeps getting maybe he's like the worst practice player. Like he's like
something's going on.
Rubs coaching
Michael Hasty.
But he's cooked now again. Like they just brought in like a more expensive version with the new regime. But I'm gonna go TreVeyon Henderson here, still from a dynasty stance, because the big picture, not just the immediate, the small gap in capital, and maybe Judkins having more year 1 touches.
That leaves the next player in that tier, Theo, for you at 107.
Yeah, so I was hoping to get TreVeyon Henderson here. I think I have Henderson ahead of Judkins. I didn't like the Dylan Sampson pick, and I think that this is a potential where Judkins is a lot better prospect, but I think Cleveland really likes Sampson. And I think with the lack of quarterback play there, I think this could turn into a 60-40 type backfield. There's also reports that they're not completely out from bringing Nick Chubb back on sort of just like a, hey, come on back on the roster deal. And Jerome Ford is still there. So I think long-term, you can make an argument for Judkins to be well up there in this class. But I think Colston Loveland is a much better bet for especially the tight end premium dynasty managers. And I think this will be reflected in some of the higher stakes like FFPC drafts. Loveland landed perfectly. He goes ahead of Tyler Warren. He goes 10th overall. And now he is attached to a head coach that oversaw Sam Laporta's year 1 tight end 1 overall performance. So like Loveland checks off all the boxes that we want for high-end tight end production. There's obviously target competition there, but I think long-term, Loveland's going to give us a number of top 5 fantasy tight end seasons. It's a really, really strong pick, I think, right here in the tight end premium format.
Corain, as you come on the clock, would you have differed between those last 2 picks?
No, I just wish Theo hadn't talked so much about Judkins if he wasn't going to pick him, because I wanted you to pick Judkins so I could take Colston Loveland.
Yeah, there you go. Enjoy your Quinshon Judkins.
No, I'm going to go Jackson Dart. I'm taking the quarterback. This guy went first round, Brian Daboll. I don't think he's going to play for much of the season, but he's going to play at the end of the season, and you're getting that 4 or 5 game stretch, and then you can take that and shop that around to your league. And I think you're going to get more than a late first at that time. So we're kind of in Judkins, I think is, pretty strong pick in best ball, and, I don't think he's going to rocket up in price because of some of the concerns that Theo raised, but it is a little like RB2-ish. We are kind of losing that because he doesn't have the receiving. So the legendary upside type of profile would be pretty dependent on rushing touchdowns. And I don't know who the quarterback is here. I have no idea what the quarterback situation is next.
They don't either.
They don't either. They don't seem really that concerned about it. So I think, I wouldn't fault anyone for going Judkins here. I think there's actually a few different options, a few different ways you could play this. But part of me is just like, give me the quarterback who went first round and has traits. This guy's actually pretty exciting. He could play an exciting brand of football under Brian Daboll.
I would say the one we should be concerned about is Malik Neighbors here, but when you also put up a top 10 points per game season with Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, like Malik Neighbors is going to be just fine, especially because at least Russell Wilson did elevate George Pickens on deep balls for half of his starts until the second half when he was just wiped away, and we saw Broncos Russell Wilson return. So still faith there for the passing game, regardless of who's under center. Rich, would you also put a similar tier break with Jackson Dart, or would you have had Judkins and maybe some others ahead of him?
I think I'd have a couple just because the history. Well, this is another time where I said I would have shopped this pick. I mean, the history of these quarterbacks that have gone in the back half of the first round is absolutely abysmal. Since the NFL expanded, there have been 13 quarterbacks taken pick 20 or later. They're Kenny Pickett, Jordan Love, who we had to wait 3 years for, the big home run, Lamar Jackson. Then we've got Paxton Lynch, Johnny Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater, Brandon Weeden, Tim Tebow, Brady Quinn, Jason Campbell, JP Losman, and Aaron Rodgers mixed in. It's not a very good hit rate of guys that typically go in this portion. If you're not an elite quarter, like if an NFL is like, we don't want to take you top 5, there's probably a reason for it. Me betting on Jackson Dart is probably something I don't want to do often, but if you're in like this type of format, I totally understand like just saying, hey, if I'm in a bad spot, trying to cash in on that currency we talked about a little bit. I think if under the parameters of this being tight end premium, I probably would say like Tyler Warren has a little more longer term currency. He's getting dinged for the landing spot, but that's fluid in Dynasty. Like this year one, like he's not gonna be catching passes from Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones hopefully in 2026. There's this portion of the draft. Let's hope not. But this portion of the draft is interesting because this is where you start to get into the guys that got capital but we don't love the landing spot, or the guys that we love the landing spot but didn't necessarily get the capital. And as a Dynasty player, I promise you, we've definitely overvalued the latter and undervalued the former, like pretty consistently. And we'll probably have a conversation when we get to RJ Harvey. But like, so, I mean, when I look at a tight end in a tight end premium league that gets picked in the top 15, that won the Mackey Award, that maybe arguably is the third best quarterback on his team already, because he was a high school quarterback and he did complete 50% of his passes last year, which is about the same rate as Anthony Richardson. So, I think that Tyler Warren's currency is going to last a lot longer than if like Jackson Dart would just play like 5 games and be bad, because people would be like, paired with the capital he got, be like, oh, yep, that was always a trap. But like Warren's going to have a runway where he could catch theoretically like 38 passes this year and still be pretty valued next year.
As Loveland also came off the board earlier, like Ben Johnson clearly had a type in mind. Like you don't draft both Loveland and Luther Burden without knowing exactly how.
On our show, we talked about Loveland going over Warren too, the tight end show.
And that was something that Mike Renner was also on, just because of how Ben Johnson would use him. But then to also add Luther Burden to that mix, like it's very clear that Johnson's already cooking up some things behind the scenes. This, though, to me at 109, you made it easier. Everyone left over Quinshon Judkins, so I'm going to take him here. And then that's why, Rich, your pick becomes fascinating, because as you said, the conversation between that next tier of players, including RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, I bet if we looked at everyone's rankings on this show, they're just different.
Yeah, which is why I'll just take Emeka Egbuka here, because again, he's going to get undervalued because of the landing spot. But first of all, the Buccaneers through Baker Mayfield already had last year at 170 dropbacks without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the field, and he was absolutely terrible. He averaged 6.6 yards per pass attempt. He only had a 73 rating throwing to wide receivers on those dropbacks. Like this was already something in the back of their mind. Like, we can't count on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin for 17 games. Chris Godwin's played one full season since 2018. Mike Evans has had a hamstring injury in 4 straight seasons. Like, this was a player that they just thought was too good to pass up. And it might be a larger need than people think it is too, you know, with Mike Evans hitting free agency and, you know, Godwin coming off that injury. So
I think he turns 32 in August as well. Yeah.
A mid first round wide receiver though, that's just going to fall. Like, I'm just going to, that like generally was universally liked. Like, I'm just going to take him based on that and just let it fall where it may at this point.
It's the oldest starting pair of wide receivers in the NFL, I think by a clear margin. And both of these guys have missed time over the last year and in the previous season. So I think it's a real bet that they've made on Baker Mayfield. And I think they're really just digging their heels in and trying to be very strong offensively. I think it bodes really well for Egbuka. I think they're also not completely out on Jalen McMillan. So just another kind of dynasty tidbit. I think you can get Jalen McMillan for absolutely nothing in some of these leagues right now because people are so scared. Egbuka, 19th overall. I think we all would have taken inside the top 20 in the pre-draft process. I sort of thought he was going to go 25th in that range. So big win for him draft capital wise. And I thought that was a great point about betting on the draft capital as certainly more so than these great landing spots.
Someone's out on McMillan after he single-handedly, well, with Jahmyr Gibbs, won fantasy championships last year. Of course, I'd be in regardless of how they scheme Egbuka as a fit there around those 3 top receivers. Theo, it is on you.
Yeah, so this one is a classic landing spot versus clean prospect profile and draft capital. I think if you really, really, really need a running back and you are ready to win and you want to push the chips in, I think RJ Harvey is a fine bet. But all the things that Rich said about Tyler Warren, I agree with. And I think Tyler Warren, I'll take it a step further. I think heading into 2026, Warren might be the guy that you're betting on to be the leading target earner in this offense. They have a bunch of good wide receivers, but none of these guys have the same draft capital as Warren. Plus, I get the tight end premium. This sort of holds back the Tyler Warren could be a Trey McBride type impact guy. But I think like with this landing spot, I think we're thinking a little bit more like TJ Hawkinson type impact, and I can get a first for TJ Hawkinson any day of the week in a format that's tight end premium. So I think Tyler Warren getting the top 15 draft capital, I'll take my lumps in year 1, but I think moving on, if that quarterback situation improves, Tyler Warren's going to put up really big fantasy numbers.
Crane, I know you are currently jostling your rookie draft rankings at Leg Up. Where do you have Warren ranked among this tier?
I have this like super flat. I have Loveland, Dart, Egbuka, Judkins, and Warren like all together. And as we like went through this, I actually raised Egbuka above Dart and regretted not just taking Egbuka because I do think you look like a year or 2 out, he could be the guy that looks like the obvious selection here, just given the draft capital, like a profile that we all think is like pretty safe. And when the 19th overall pick hits their ceiling, you know, and we all think he's probably going to hit. So I think.
And we've been spoiled in Dynasty about some of these the early returns in recent years, especially at wide receiver.
Yeah. And
sometimes it's okay to, like, these guys do take some breath. Like we brought up, you know, he's playing on a team with Godwin who took a couple of years, and TJ just brought up, or Theo just brought up Trey McBride, who took a year and a half. Like Zach Ertz had to get hurt that second year for him to like actually get a chance.
Yeah. But give me the immediate returns here. I'll take RJ Harvey. This dude went in the 5th round of the first Best Ball Mania draft that I was in this morning. Yeah. He's going ahead of Judkins. He's going ahead of Henderson. And, you know, he was a 2nd round pick. He's in that kind of Marvin Mims spot where like it'll probably end up being a disaster at the end of the 2nd round for Peyton. But, you know, he's honestly like a pretty good prospect for me with this level of draft capital. He's a bit undersized and he's old, but he's versatile. He can be used in the passing game. He lands with Sean Payton. He's explosive. I'm like way less concerned with an undersized pass catching running back if he goes 2nd round to a Sean Payton offense. This is beyond best case scenario for him. He gets the great offensive line, so it's not even just Payton. Gets the potential ascending quarterback. There's a lot of upside here, and he should be productive. Right, like if it works, it's going to work right away. You don't have to wait for the 25-year-old running back, which is nice.
Unless like Estime, he fumbles in the preseason twice and then he's just done for half the year.
Well, then it's over. Then yeah.
I think the undersized is so overblown for him too. Like if you look at actual pictures of like RJ Harvey, nothing about this guy screams undersized. He's an absolute unit. Completely rocked up guy, probably the biggest quads. A bunch of people are talking about like just eye tests down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Harvey's like built completely different. So he's shorter, but he certainly looks like a guy that can take on a lot of hits.
Yeah, this is the spot though. Like stout. no one went nuts. Like, because I think we might see him in a couple. Well, unless you're in that BBM with I do think there's going to be rookie draft, but I do think there's going to be rookie drafts where he does go higher. Like just because gamers
remember like, Keyshawn Vaughn.
He was not like even Keyshawn Vaughn. Like this area that you talked about, that being like around pick 60, like this is the hot spot for like all dudes we have like elevated in Dynasty of like the ghost of running backs past. I mean, you have Amir Abdullah, you have Bishop Stanky, Christine Michael, Monty Ball, Eddie Lacy, Michael Ashore, Isaiah Peed, Toby Gerhart, Montario Hardesty, like Kevin Smith. Like this is the spot.
Rich, how did you get access to this old league I was in?
How'd you see my roster?
Because I've made these picks, man. It's like, but I said a decade in of overdoing this and doing these rankings, like I'm like you gotta be cautious to dip one toe in, one toe out, right? Like and understand like when the capital and landing spot like window over value. I do think this is the right spot though to say, because your roster, if you're picking at this spot, is probably pretty good. It's probably in good shape, and getting immediate production, even if say RJ Harvey doesn't give you an RB1 season, let's just say value and opportunity in a Sean Payton offense gives him an RB2 plus season, like that's probably gonna be valuable for your roster at this point on a contending team, which I assume probably already has a good running back too, if you're already a contending team. So it makes sense in this area. I think above this though is where you start to talk about some of the cautionary stuff. This is a fine spot though, I believe.
To recap the first round for everyone listening: Ashton Genty, Amarian Hampton, Tet McMillan, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, Travion Henderson, Colston Loveland, Jackson Dart, Quinshawn Judkins, Emeka Ibuka, Tyler Warren, RJ Harvey. And then I am beginning the second round with, I understand Matthew Golden's capital is still on the board here. I'm going to actually pivot and go Caleb Johnson. Maybe because I'm so thankful for both the Browns and Steelers that they drafted the exact type of running back where I can copy and paste last year's team report, team preview on, and just say, okay, well, here's Najee Harris yet again. This is great. Jaylen Warren, still a satellite back under Arthur Smith. This is amazing. I don't have to write everything. But I do think it's outside of having Mason Rudolph, I do think we've already foreseen how they're going to use Caleb Johnson. We got the capital as we expected, not to mention that this is a team that needed that running back. They obviously skipped on it in the first round, come right back in the third and grab him. So I like Caleb Johnson here. Rich, it's to you. How would my pick of Johnson differ with still respectable guys like Golden, Luther Burden on the board?
No, I think that's a fine spot, to work. Him and Harvey are the two guys. I think that's like, you don't want to push him too much because of the landing spot, because it's easy just to say like he can just occupy Najee Harris's, production, and they're going to use him in that role. But also, he's a guy that only has 1 year of really tangible production. If he's very mediocre or not very good as a rookie, he was a third round pick. And if they lose Jaylen Warren for agency, there's no telling what the sliding door could happen in year two. So like the area is fine. Those are, let's say, like, these are the two guys where I don't think I want to push higher than this area of the draft, but I think this area of the draft is completely fine with them though. So I don't have a problem with that. I'll take just the same thing. I'll make the Egbuka bet with Golden. Golden's not a player I love. Theo was the one who made this point when I did the first mock draft a month ago, where he was just consistently going in this area. And here he is. He got the capital. And he goes to a spot where I think for fantasy is a little bit tricky, because we're all expecting him to kind of be year one in that Christian Watson role. I do think he has more versatility than Christian Watson than just being a downfield guy. But removing Christian Watson from that offense last year was just such a big drop off, because he, obviously did the Christian Watson thing where he missed time even before the week 18 injury. And Jordan Love went from just under 9 yards per pass attempt with Christian Watson on the field down to 7 yards per pass attempt flat with him off the field, because the other guys in the offense are possession guys. They're all near the line of scrimmage possession guys. So I think they're going to try to pigeonhole Golden a little bit year one to where he's more of a downfield threat. And Love had a lot of that Russell Wilson game to him last year. It was check down 30-yard pass. And that's how I think he's going to play. So does he get kind of hamstrung? But again, if you're allowing me to take a first round wide receiver, like in the second round rookie drafts, I'll just take him with my eyes closed and just say, see what happens.
My initial reaction, Theo, whenever Golden came off the board was not that I was excited for Jordan Love. I got anxiety because I was like, oh, I have to write about this all offseason. Once again, trying to parse 6 different Packers receivers from one another. But what are your thoughts on Matthew Golden here?
I've sort of been the pro Golden argument guy on every single pod I've gone on. And one of the only landing spots that I think he had the opportunity to become the top option in the passing game was Green Bay. And there's a lot of smart people that are still completely out on Matthew Golden. But I love the landing spot. And this is the first time Green Bay has selected a wide receiver in the first round since 2002. Everybody was projecting them to take a cornerback. They instead go Golden. We saw what happened in the playoffs. They scored 10 points, and Jordan Love had 3 interceptions. They go and take Golden the first round. Rich, you brought up the Christian Watson. I think that's sort of what he can be in this role. I think that he's a guy who's going to be a big play specialist, but I think the target ceiling moves up in this offense. And Jayden Reed's never been a guy that they've really, really embraced consistently. So the argument that this is great for Jayden Reed, I think that's a little bit wishful thinking. I like Jayden Reed a lot, but I think Golden is a guy that is going to have a big opportunity to make a big impact here. And it could end up being a squeeze where everybody's like, why did we pass on this super fast guy that was an early entry who got this sort of great draft capital and landing spot in order to take some wide receivers who went in the second round?
And Theo, you're also on the clock after that Golden selection.
So I'll take a wide receiver that went in the second round here, and I'll take Jaden Higgins. And I think there's two names you could say here that both make a lot of sense. But Jaden Higgins, I love the landing spot. I think he'll be the number 2 option in the entire passing game here. We saw Stephon Diggs in a completely different role, in that low ADOT kind of gross role, average 15 points per game. We also, in this offense, we also saw Tank Dell 2 seasons ago, sort of light fantasy on fire for a number of weeks. I think Higgins being opposite Nico Collins, it's going to give him advantageous matchups. I think usage will be strong. And I think this is I didn't necessarily love the Knoll pick, but they don't have overlapping skill sets. They both had 80-plus receptions alongside one another. So for me, Jaden Higgins, I think, is a real value at the beginning of second rounds. And I think he'll sneak in some first rounds as well.
I would also say I think he has less of an overlapping skill set with Christian Kirk. It's really probably Knoll or Kirk who's their slot, but he slots in right away as the other outside guy. So the Knoll pick might not matter that much because it's
all the two wide stuff.
And I think Kirk was sort of in retrospect, they give up the 7th round pick for Kirk. At the time, we all sort of get excited. But they told you basically what they think about Kirk by using a 2nd and a 3rd round pick.
Totally.
So I think Kirk is sort of a dead asset.
I also bet they would have taken Ibuka if he had been there, given that they took 2 receivers in the 2nd and 3rd round. So,
They just wanted to reunite the teammates. That's all they were doing.
It's kind of cool. Is it to me? I'll take Luther Burden, another 2nd round receiver. I mean, Burden is going to be like we've had Jackson Dart and Matthew Golden, who are kind of like it's probably not going to work, but I'm getting the draft capital at least. Burden is like, you didn't really get the draft capital because we all thought he was going to be a 1st round pick in January and he falls to the 2nd. But the upside with Burden, and in a Ben Johnson offense now, and in a situation where it's like, new regime, or at least new coaching regime, and they draft a tight end 10th overall and a receiver in the 2nd, not great for the existing wide receivers, like not great for Roma Dunze, who was not efficient in his rookie season and had trouble distancing himself from Keenan Allen. So, what pick
would you take for Roma Dunze? If you took him 103 last year, what's the lowest pick you're taking for him? Heads up, just the blanket pick.
Would you like re-roll Odunze for Burden? Because I might.
Oh, no, so you take like a high 2 for him.
I might take a high 2 for Odunze.
I think I would take a high 2 for him. Yeah.
I think you can get a lot more than that. And if you guys are both saying that, I think that's something people should consider. I've seen Odunze go for 108s. So again, I agree with you guys. The Burden pick was not good for Odunze, and also the whole Odunze is going to be this big slot in the Ben Johnson offense. That ship sort of sails. He really likes Burden.
Yeah, that's the tough part. The Burden pick kind of hurts everyone, including Loveland, which is kind of funny because it when you look at Ben Johnson, we did with Amon-Ra St. Brown, like Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't a slot only player. He was basically a 50-50 in like CeeDee Lamb, like inside out. And we were all kind of saying, like, well, he can use either guy. Like he can just rotate DJ Moore and Rome Odunze like that. And now he drafted a player that's basically like an 80% slot dude. That's like gonna be what we talked about. Two players that we talked about, Josh Downs and Jaden Reed. The reason those dudes can't get over the hurdle is because they're slot only players and they play in low volume offenses, but like because they can't, there's been no versatility to their usage. So like the selection of Burden was really interesting because he actually kind of hurts everyone else too.
That's what was so interesting about the pick, to your point, because yes, you draft Loveland, and then we're all assuming, okay, Cole Kmet in line. Now you can use Loveland as he's supposed to be used as a slot receiver. And then they grab Burden, and it's like, okay, I don't know what happens anymore. Like, again, we're all just throwing up that smoke to Ben Johnson and saying, please get us to the promised land, because you drafted these guys with an intention in mind, and I just don't know exactly what that intention is for this offense, besides be awesome.
We do this all the time in fantasy, though, where we're like, this is the offense, and like just grab pieces of the offense. And then even if we're right, yeah, we've done it with this offense. But even if we're right, sometimes, I mean, last year's Texans offense was, very disappointing, but you were right, to invest in Nico Collins in the second round. Mixon was a good pick. So there were ways it pays off, but there are going to be busts on this offense now. The way we're pricing these guys, like there have to be. It's like Loveland, Burden, Moore, Odunze. Like these guys are gonna cannibalize each other to some degree. Someone's coming out on top that we're gonna get really excited about, and there's gonna be guys who lose a lot of value. I think Odunze has the most value to lose because he hasn't done anything in year one, and he's on the Bears for another couple years after this. So if he doesn't break out this year, at least like, to a productive, reliable type of fantasy asset, what's he worth? I think you just kind of have a hard time selling someone on him after the year. So it's not that I'm out on Odunze, but I do think just understand that the bottom could really fall out on him after this year.
I am on the clock next after the Luther Burden selection, and similar to the conversation we just had in over-evaluating a player's situation, I am going to go Trey Harris here because I was someone who was wrong, at least in best ball. I was very underweight last year. Lad McConkey, questioning how we could get into two wide receiver sets. He comes out, he just naturally plays his way into him. And despite Quentin Johnston somehow leading the team with 8 touchdowns, I do think Trey Harris is still the better long-term option on the outside. So I'm going to try this once more. Assume Harris can beat out QJ, at least in the second half of the season, and go that route with him in 2 wide sets with McConkey. Rich, it is on you.
Yeah, I like that one. This is, again, probably another tier break, depending how you probably feel about maybe a guy or two. But I think Trey Harris is a firewall pick, like for me, based on what's left.
And to me, to be fair, yes, it was between him and Bashal Tootin. And at least with Tootin, like that is Liam Cohen's guy, but there's still some hills to climb there, which is why I go Harris naturally over him.
Yeah, I think you got Tootin and Scatabo in this area where people might be considering. I think at this spot too, the only other guy I would consider that I'd say I'll take here just for the sake of having a conversation about him is Kyle Williams. This is kind of feel like a safe spot where I don't care if I miss with this pick. Like it's a second round pick. He got the capital we were hoping he was going to get, see if the steam was real. He landed in a spot that I think is just extremely nebulous, attached to just the player I believe in Drake May. And I believe in Josh McDaniels. Like Josh McDaniels is a terrible head coach, but there's a reason he keeps getting a chance to be a head coach. It's because his offense is always produced, man. Even that year, the year before at the Raiders, that last full year at the Raiders, his team way overachieved on offense. And then you have the Stephon Diggs going to be 31, major injury. There's targets to have in this offense. So, yeah, I think I would just take the draft capital here and say like, all right, I'll see what happens. I'll see what sticks. Because this is a dude I think from like a skill set has like everything you want to succeed in like the modern NFL. Like this guy can move inside, outside. He can win at the line of scrimmage. He can win downfield. And I've already been May-pilled. So
welcome aboard.
Theo, you're on the clock now.
Yeah, so I think that I would have probably gone with one of the two running backs there, Rich, and I think it's just make a bet on Bashal Tutin or Cam Scattaboo. But I'll go with Bashal Tutin. I liked him more as a prospect heading in. I think that this is it's easier for him to beat out the two players in Jacksonville versus Cam Scattaboo completely nuking Tyrone Tracy, who I think is a guy that Dable actually likes. So I'll bet with Bashal Tutin. He's extremely explosive. We saw what happened last year in a Liam Cohen offense when a fourth-round pick running back with some juice ended up there. He completely went with them, and Bucky Irving lit the world on fire. I think we have to temper our expectations a little bit, but I think Bashal Tutin giving us some immediate production and having a chance for his role to grow and expand there, I think there's a big chance here. And we talked about Bashal Tutin a lot in the build-up as a guy who is a big play potential guy. I think Jacksonville seems like an organization that's going to really value big plays. They're very analytical. Gladstone seems to be really doing his own thing here. And I think that everything about Tutin sort of fits in with what they're building there. So I'm going to go Bashal Tutin, and I think he's good value here.
I actually listened to the press conference with the Jaguars, the day 3 one, and they were talking about how
what is
Liam
your
Cohen
life,
was like,
by the way, watching the day 3 Liam Cohen press conference.
I got the YouTube where, I paid for the premium so you can turn it off.
That's why you paid for it. Yeah.
It's like a podcast, So but they were talking about wanting the ability score from a distance. And Cohen was like, last year we had to have 10, 15 play drives. We were efficient, but that's not what I would prefer. I would prefer to be able to have explosive plays, and then specifically mention Travis Hunter and Bashal Tutin as guys that they were adding for that purpose. So yeah, I mean, he's going to be excited about Tutin's big play upside. And he also talked about his ability to force missed tackles behind the line of scrimmage. So Tutin's really exciting. I also think Scattaboo is really exciting. Same kind of early 4th round capital, goes into, a backfield that I do think he can take, because what Scattaboo, he has two things he does really well. He's really good in short yardage, and he's a good pass catcher. So he actually shares that with Tyrone Tracy. He could get himself on the field as the more reliable runner, and then, stay out there. They could be kind of overlapping skill set guys where they're trading drives as opposed to needing to bring them in for different situations. But he would be the one, I think, for short yardage that might come onto the field as the season goes on. So, anytime you can invest in the hottest seat in the entire NFL by taking Jackson Dart and Cam Scattaboo in the same draft, you got to do it. But yeah, I like Scattaboo here. I think him and Tutin they're back to back for me, and I like both of them.
And I'll say that I think there's going to be a lot of drafts where those two guys go a little bit closer towards the beginning of the second round because of the lack of really clean running back landing spots that we saw. So I think our draft is not necessarily reflective here. I think that there's the Trey Harris, Kyle Williams, those kind of guys. I think these two running backs in some drafts are going to go right up next to Burden.
I am on the clock next, and we are starting to wither out and get even wider in selections here, where rankings are going to differ dramatically. I'm going to go ahead and take Jalen Knoll here, just because we know we're not going to, well, I shouldn't say we know, but most likely Tank Dell has been reportedly not going to play this season. And so there are targets to go around here without Stephon Diggs and behind Nico Collins. Jaden Higgins, of course, got the draft capital, but I'm still curious to see how the rest of the target tree and what a new offense looks like for the Texans and CJ Stroud's 3rd year. So I'm just going to take Jalen Knoll here and hope the Texans figure it out, perhaps give him a role down the stretch, Rich.
Yeah, I like that. Again, I guess I'm just kind of taking a guy just based on capital, but I guess I would take Jack Best here. I don't even really like this dude. I don't love the fit either. It's a weird spot, right? Because you're hoping just Jacoby Myers is gone. He's a UFA next year, but it's really weird because they have Brock Bowers there. And if you go back to where Jack Best kind of started, because everyone brings up that first year at LSU, but he played a Brock Bowers position at LSU. He didn't play wide receiver. It was all this stuff as a big tight end,
he outproduced Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas that year.
But he didn't play receiver though, which is weird. Right. Especially if you look at the snaps, they overlapped on the field, he got dusted by those guys. But it's funny because the counting stats, they used him in this weird, to give him almost tertiary handoffs.
Interesting.
And then he doesn't have like great man profile stuff, which like I college level, I don't care that much about in the NFL because you don't see a lot of man coverage. But in college, like I want you to be dusting dudes. Like when you're facing that 18-year-old kid from Arkansas State, like you better be dusting that dude. I care about that stuff because when you go in the NFL, like the zones are tighter and everything. It's so I do have some concerns about him, but just the capital, I guess at this point is another just capital bet, and just hopefully it works out that where he gets a larger target share in 2026, and he's gonna get on the field this year anyways, but.
Speaking of capital, I think we are getting into that tier of guys who are like, well, I didn't expect him to get the capital, but here we are in rookie drafts.
I should have took Jalen Milroe for the brand, but
I'll take Jalen Milroe here, and I think that like the Jalen Milroe in this sort of range, it's a good bet to make. All he's got to do is beat out Sam Darnold and get on the field. And as soon as he gets on the field, like we talked a little bit in the pre-show, a little spoiler alert about trying to value Tyler Shuck and what he can get you. I know that I'll be able to flip Jalen Milroe if he gets on a field, because this guy is going to be a impactful player for us in Superflex leagues because of his rushing upside. Just needs to get on the field. And it sounds like Seattle, everything that they said in the press conferences is that they really liked Milroe. They had him as a very highly ranked quarterback in this class. I think it's a very good bet to make. And again, you don't need him to play a lot, but every time at this range in the draft, I'm getting him at the end of the second round. Just get on the field a few games, and he's going to make an impact for me, either as a trading chip or a guy who helps me win a game in fantasy.
It's also an entirely different environment than Sam Darnold succeeding with Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. It's just totally different now. Rich, you mentioned at the top of the show you would only draft 2 quarterbacks in a similar format like this, 3-round Superflex.
QB, yeah.
And 1 QB. Would those 2 quarterbacks, would it be Jackson Dart, or would you instead skip Dart?
Yeah. Just because Dart's gonna, he's still got the capital and it's gonna play. Milroe, I mean, we've lived this, like he's just not a good enough passer to have probably sustained, success in the NFL. But I'm gonna play the shit out of Jalen Milroe in preseason DFS. We're gonna play him in DFS anytime he gets
salary,
to start. DFS. Anytime we can start, if he gets a spot start, like he's gonna be a really popular DFS play.
For sure.
But like Theo said, like I like just the fact that why I even considered him was the reasons Theo laid out. It's just that like he probably has you have a larger chance to flip him, I think, than Tyler Shuck when he does get to start. But we've lived this already. Anthony Richardson's the poster boy, and he went pick 5. Like we did it when Justin Fields is on his 3rd team now. Like that you have to eventually, is even being loving the Konami and what it does for fantasy football. You have to throw the football in the NFL. Like no NFL teams are giving you the time of day, big picture, if you can't complete passes.
And he
looks Malik Willis-y now too at this draft capital. Like it's not.
Yes.
It's not the Anthony Richardson price. It's not even the Justin Fields profile now. I think there's upside for people to get excited about him with like that same kind of the same Jackson Dart type of thing, where it's at the end of the season, they give him 4 games or whatever. He heads into next season as potentially the starter. But I would even say then it's kind of like Will Levis-y, where I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and get out now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because we assume it's a 2-year deal since the Seahawks have that void in Darnold's contract in the 2026 offseason. But they also can save roughly $8 million against the cap by cutting Darnold next year if it is like that bad. Right. So there is like potentially a 1-year leash here for
sure. Him and the Cup deals can both be 1-year deals if they want them to be.
Yeah. He's kind of their escape hatch. Like if this season doesn't go well, they just blow it up and bring in Milroe as their guy, and then he gets them all fired the following year. But he might be fun for fantasy.
The board is wide open, Corain, as you approach ending the second round. To quickly recap those selections, it is Caleb Johnson, Matthew Golden, Jaden Higgins, Luther Burden, Trey Harris, Kyle Williams, Bashal Tootin, Cam Scatterboo, Jalen Knoll, Jack Besh, and Jalen Milroe up to 212 here.
Well, Reap said he would mercilessly ridicule whoever took Tyler Shuck. So I'm actually, that's enough for me to break it. That's a tiebreaker. I'm going to go ahead and take Harold Fannin.
There you go.
Who is one of my favorite prospects of the class from a production standpoint, because he was literally half an offense. But look, he goes round 3 to the Browns, who I think like from a scheme perspective, this is one of the better landing spots where it's like these guys love tight ends. They like playing in 12. They specifically talked up his ability to block. not as like an inline guy necessarily, but as a guy that allows them to do the types of things they want to do. I think they change OCs, they bring in Judkins, they bring in Sampson, and they draft a tight end. So this is a team I think that's going to be recommit. Also, they don't have a quarterback. So this is a team that's going to recommit here to kind of being able to play power football. And honestly, I think Fannin will help with that and then operate as a big slot type. I mean, they don't have a slot receiver either, really, right? So it's, the Elijah Moore thing didn't work. So he's the dream for him is that he's kind of in that like old Aaron Hernandez type of role. And I think he could be in that type of role here. Now you do have to have them eventually figure out quarterback and everything. But the other out that he has is that David Njoku is an unrestricted free agent after the season as well. So we could be talking about him as just like a regular old starting tight end. He's not that undersized. People act like he's 230 pounds. He's like 242. Mm-hmm. He was a capable blocker, what they asked him to do at Bowling Green. He's not going to be ready to come in and be a traditional tight end out of the gate, but in a year or two, he might just be the Browns starting tight end. And was a prolific pass catcher. So I just feel like the tight end premium upside is worth taking a stab at here.
I actually forgot it was tight end premium. I should have taken Fannin instead of Besh. It's a way better pick.
You took a tight end without tight end eligibility.
That's right. Yeah, that was a better pick.
We are all in agreement that Milroe and Fannin probably should have gone a couple picks earlier. I'm leading off the third round. Now we're getting to a wide open board. I'm going to go ahead, and this is probably also the wrong way to evaluate, but if I see only Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders ahead of you, I'm going to go ahead and grab your draft capital on day 3 and say, Jaden Blue, although you didn't get many touches in college, I hope it's only because you were behind Bijan Robinson and that you can be successful and beat out this backfield for the Cowboys. I was also someone who was underweight on Rico Dowdle once he got steamed around August last year. Turns out once he finally got the touches in the second half of the season, he was successful because there was just no one else to threaten his role. Hoping that can happen in the second half of the year for Jaden Blue as well, Rich.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Blue is one of those guys that, like, you talk about, just like what he adds as a receiver is just worth it too. Like that's a team that needs like another big playmaker, and he can be that in the passing game. He could get larger work if both these guys are truly dust. My hot take is like the Cowboys are kind of okay with these three, at least like in terms of like if you're just asking for like Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams to get you like 3 or 4 yards and have Blue come in and be a change of pace guy, like I think that actually can kind of work out. Like they had Rico Dowdle.
Couldn't we have asked for a little more in one of the deepest running back classes of all time? Couldn't we?
I guess.
Back-to-back years, Dallas is rumored to get all these running backs, and they avoid them.
They're sharper than anyone gives them credit for, though. Like, we've been dunking on them, but like since Jerry Jones has kind of conceded like the draft operations, like actually are a pretty sharp drafting team. If like you look at like their recent history, like they're because everyone's thought for like 3 years they have to take a running back, they're going to do it again, and they don't. They just don't. They keep trying to build elsewhere and try to go cheap. And they had it work last year. Like Dowdle was fine,
but they could have brought Dowdle back.
Sure.
And
they're just boring.
Could have.
That's the thing. Like Will McClay is intelligent and boring. That's just it. Like Dak has the least swag of any quarterback. He's doing videos on YouTube with Dude Perfect. Like he's just the least coolest quarterback of all time. That's the entire Cowboys regime, is they make sound picks like a Tyler Smith, like a Tyler Booker, but it's not exciting or sexy since they ripped that Johnny Manziel card out of Jerry Jones' hand.
I think you should feel good about the Cowboys from like a passing offense stance of like CeeDee Lamb just going nuclear again, because this team is kind of built to throw again, and they don't really have other pass catchers. But they're going to play open offense though, I think. So you're going to have like Blue as a pipeline, I believe, to catch like 50 passes as a rookie.
And on top of the lack of competition, I'm still trying to rework my mind as well for Blue. I know we didn't get the same draft capital as these guys, but we've seen Achane and Bucky Irving have immense success as being undersized running backs. So I do want to have a little bit of faith in Blue here. They can win out and just learn to stay healthy as those guys did. Rich, you were on the clock.
Who you just took Blue?
I took Blue.
I guess I would just take Dylan Sampson and hopefully it works out. Another one of these picks like down in this area. I guess you could look at the tight ends too. I keep forgetting this tight end premium. You guys throwing me off here with this. So I guess if it's tight end premium, I gotta retract. I'll take Terrence Ferguson if it's tight end premium.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep the tight end run going. I I mean, I like the Ferguson pick. I think Elijah Arroyo is a similar bet, just it goes around later. The Seattle press conference was really impressive for him. They were talking about how they wondered if he could just straight up play X in the league. And I think they don't have a guy like him in the passing game that's really threatening. So I think Arroyo is going to get those big downfield targets. I liked him a lot at the Senior Bowl. He's a guy that I've sort of been ahead of consensus with. So I was a little disappointed when he fell out of round 2, but I was really, really happy about the landing spot. I think Arroyo and Ferguson are both good bets in this range.
Crane, it comes to you, and although you were scared of being berated by Rich and drafting Tyler Shuck, he's still on the board. So,
I can't believe you guys did this to me.
Take him. Just take him.
Tight end. Oh, it's tight end premium. I forgot it's tight end premium. Better take all these tight ends. It's also super flex, guys. Yeah. We have to take Tyler Shuck at some point. Tyler Shuck, he might start the whole season. He was an early second round pick. Derek Carr might get shoulder surgery. He's totally done with the Saints. They're totally done with him, I guess, although they paid him like a month ago. But they're going to move on from after the season. Like, Tyler Shuck's going to be a starting quarterback in 2026, and that costs a lot more than this. I'm going to go ahead and take Tyler Shuck.
It's funny. I had this conversation with Brett Whitefield this morning. We recorded, and I asked Brett, I said, what is the percentage chance that he can hold on to the job in 2026? It's like, Pat, is it a better chance that Tyler Shuck is the starting quarterback for New Orleans next year, or Jalen Milroe somehow just comes in and rushes for like 100 yards a game and Seattle says, we can make this thing work?
I think Tyler Shuck is a better bet if you're in points per starts leagues. Tyler Shuck is like by far the better bet because he got the draft capital. He got early second round draft capital compared to third round for Milroe. And I mean, okay, Shuck's turning 26. We'll round that up to 36 usually as we talk about it. It's like, but this is a guy who, I was listening to Dane Brugler talk about his Senior Bowl stuff, like way back when we were talking about the Senior Bowl and Jackson Dart's there. And he's like, honestly, Tyler Shuck is the guy that stood out to me. That's the guy. You watch this guy throw. I know the age. I know he's been in college forever, but this is the guy who really jumps off the tape when you watch him like execute an offense and make the throws and stuff. I don't really get it, but I don't scout quarterbacks. And so the NFL, I mean, really from the beginning of the offseason process, thought Tyler Shuck was one of the top quarterbacks in this class and worthy of this early second round conversation. And now gets put in a situation where I think he really has to screw up not to be their starter in 2026. Like he's set up to be their starter now after whatever this situation with Carr ends. But they're going to cut Carr after the year, even if Carr plays. Like they can finally move on and actually save money and not, before this, the dead cap was higher than any money they'd save. But they still eat like 50 something million in dead cap by moving on. But I think they'll do it, spread it out over a couple years, and just move forward with Shuck, who helps them manage the salary cap going forward, going to that rookie contract. So I really do feel like it's a safer bet than it feels like from the perspective of getting starts.
That is true. The one thing about Shuck that I never cared about the age or anything to this point. Like my problem with Shuck, and it from a real stance and now in a direct overlap to fantasy stances, we have no stationary quarterbacks that are successful in the NFL outside of Matthew Stafford, really. Like it's like, and from a prospect stance, these guys that can't move, because Shuck is a complete zero. He cannot move at all. Like it's not like we have pass first guys like Herbert and Burt. Like these guys are athletic. They can absolutely chip in for a couple 100-yard. This guy's gonna be like, if he has positive rushing yards, it's gonna be amazing. And I just think that style of quarterback the NFL has moved on from. Like it's like you better be Tom F. and Brady, like if you're gonna be like that. So that I just don't see like how he becomes a successful pick from that stance in reality. And then if you aren't doing those things, you better be throwing 30 to 40 touchdown passes. And like, do we believe that's going to happen? Like that's my hardest thing. But you're right.
I don't know. These like his like kept clean scramble rate was okay. Like he wasn't. I don't think he's a total zero. He's a pocket passer, but I don't think he's like. I don't think he's Mike Glennon or something as far as just like cannot move.
That was the thing with McCord too, like in the same bucket. Like you're just not going to get any rushing out of these guys. And like I think Goff was like the last prospect, and he went 1 overall. That was an absolute, stationary quarterback largely. And none of these guys don't work out in today's game anymore.
Yeah. I mean, he is a true pocket passer.
27, and I mean, I gotta fight you back on it. Like, I think I have him for full transfer. I think I have him 24th overall in Superflex non-tight end premium, so it's like right around the ballpark.
It's also the fact that Derek Carr is going to get cut, as you said, because Tyler Shuck is going to allow the Saints to draft Arch Manning next year. And so that's a bit of a roadblock.
Derek Carr's doing righteous gemstones like prayer groups about his shoulder injury. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, that's like the thing. Like, I guess he was talking about a shoulder injury, like he was, Elijah Gemstone, this weekend.
Hell yeah.
Uncle Baby Billy.
Yeah.
Top comps for Shuck for me were Geno Smith, JJ McCarthy, and Kenny Pickett. So, JJ could work. He's a statue that we haven't seen yet. I guess he's a little bit mobile.
Yeah.
Pickett, total bust. Geno.
All right. As the third round continues, the board, lots of options here. I'm gonna chase draft capital in this spot. Someone I don't think any of us expected to be drafted in the third round. But the Lions, after just digging for any kind of reps from Khalif Raymond and Tim Patrick, go out and get 6'4", 214 Isaac Tesla. And so I'm just going to cross my fingers, despite basically no collegiate production, that at that size with a 97th percentile speed score, that he can do something in 3 wide receiver sets here. I have no idea what that offense becomes. I didn't even begin to parse them all just yet without Ben Johnson and what this offensive line now is, probably putting Jared Goff under more pressure. I'm just going to take that size and that profile, though, at least athleticism profile, and cross my fingers something can be worked out. Rich.
All right. Yeah, I guess just by default, I'd take Mason Taylor here. Just for the I don't think this is like a star player, though. I think the biggest, toughest part about Mason Taylor's team is I just don't think this is like a guy that's never an elite player.
You know what kind of reminds me of is like when last year the Giants took Theo Johnson. I was like, this guy's literally just Daniel Bellinger again. He feels like Jeremy Ruckert again.
Yeah. I told Daigle on the like, if it's not tight end premium, I think there are only 3 tight ends that I would draft, and then you could talk me into maybe Terrence Ferguson now with the Rams pick, but
they have no one in New York, though. The one argument for Taylor is they take
also Justin Fields.
Justin Fields is true, but it's Malachi Corley, Arian Smith, and then Mason Taylor, who they take like really early on. So I don't know. Taylor landed in a spot where they potentially might have to target him a little bit more.
And when the regime that takes Corley can't even get him on the field, I imagine the regime that did not take him cannot get him on the field.
Yeah, Taylor should start right away, I would assume.
Yeah, he should.
Theo, you are up next.
I'll go Jarquez Hunter, who I think actually landed in a really appealing spot. Blake Corum did nothing last year, and they moved up to get Jarquez Hunter, 1,200 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns last year. Runs low 4.4 speed. He's very, very physically strong back, and he's a little bit similar to Darrell Henderson in sort of his size and the profile. I think that this is they also haven't extended Kyron Williams, and again, I think there's a chance that Hunter moves into this high-end handcuff territory this year, and anytime we get a running back in the McVay offense, it's just printing money for fantasy. So give me a back with a little bit of juice in this backfield.
Pat, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I think this is a spot where we should be just taking cracks at these running backs. I'll take a crack at DJ Giddens, who I hoped the Cowboys would take when they took Blue, but he goes a couple picks later to the Colts. He's I think just slot in as the backup. Like, I think he has a path to be the backup right away. They don't really have much depth there. And if Taylor were to miss any time, he's got a really interesting skill set. I know in JJ's stuff, he was if you give him second round draft capital, he looks like a bunch of really productive second round running backs because he has this type of skill set where he can do everything really well. Doesn't necessarily like stand out in any particular area where it's like, oh, he's going to force his way on the field. But I think this is actually a pretty good landing spot, once you accept that he's going to go in the 5th round, because he can kind of be the versatile backup to Taylor. The Colts can save $13 million by moving on from Taylor after the season. And while I don't think they actually do that, there may be talk that they might after the season. Giddens maybe flashes a bit, and you get your sell window there, and kind of the early off season where we're sick of veterans who disappointed slightly. and the the rookies behind them are really popular. So Giddens, unfortunately, given the draft capital situation, probably not going to be anything, but I still think he has upside, at least to be kind of a spot starter.
He'll be a fun player in redraft too, because it's a direct handcuff to a team that's going to run the ball a lot, and he's got athleticism. So I like the Giddens pick.
Yeah, Taylor's missed games the last 3 years, and especially a running back that just lives off of rushing volume. Like he gets banged up. Like the dude gets banged up.
Yep.
He doesn't get a lot of free space touches.
I'm going to take the easy approach and say Pat Bryant got draft capital for the Broncos. No idea how he fits in the offense, but there are still some spots for targets there.
Hey, they called him Mike Thomas. Sean Payton called him Mike Thomas.
He did call him, it's going to be interesting how they fit him in, because Devon Vele actually
he did.
Did you? Yes, where were you on the YouTube there? Where were you?
I can only watch so many,
out.
Rich.
It was a long.
You were dialed in on Pat Bryant thoughts.
Oh, that's terrible for Vele. I thought he was the new Mike.
Vele was actually serviceable at the end of the year too when he came back from injury.
Yeah,
like, he's the guy.
He played big slot for them. Oh no, we're gonna have to. Troy Franklin lives.
Yeah, he called him Michael Thomas, man.
Sean Payton, unlike a lot of coaches, whenever he drafts a guy, he loves drafting a guy.
Dude.
The 2 days about watching RJ Harvey's film, about now comparing Pat Bryant to Mike Thomas, like he had these guys in mind.
He traded a whole draft class once for Adam Troutman.
That's true, yeah.
The rest
he hates playing the guys.
And then brought him back to Denver.
Yeah, and then hates playing them.
He's a big sower. Sean Payton, big sower. Not so much a reaper.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Bryant's going to slide in over Troy Franklin and 3 wide sets for Denver. Theo. Or no, Rich, it's up to you. Last 3 picks of the draft, by the way.
All right, this is where I take Dylan Sampson then.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you took Dylan Sampson earlier. That's fine.
I think I changed it to Terrence Ferguson.
You did change it, yep.
That was part of my ruse.
There you go.
Yeah, we all thought he's off the board.
Threw the curveball, Rich.
And then the one time you remember it's tied in preview, you took Mason Taylor and hated it.
Yeah, I hated myself. A Jack Besh.
I'll keep the running backs going. Trevor Etienne. Carolina just can't help themselves. They have to add a running back whenever possible. But Trevor Etienne, I think he's got the chance to sort of beat out Rico Dowdle. I know Dowdle, there's a lot of enthusiasm about his season last year, but he's a guy that Dallas just moved off of. Trevor Etienne has speed. He's a little more versatile. Can catch the football. And Dave Canales offense. If he gets on the field, he's going to score points.
And Corrine, you are going to wrap up the final round of our rookie mock draft. And to begin, just to recap the third round, Jaden Blue, Terrence Ferguson, Elijah Arroyo, Tyler Shook, Isaac Tesla, Mason Taylor, Jarquez Hunter, DJ Giddens, Pat Bryant, Dylan Sampson, Trevor Etienne, and now your selection.
We've all written Alvin Kamara's obituary, but maybe we were a couple years early and we had the wrong guy to put him in the ground. I'll take Devin Neal, going back to the well, do the Kendre Miller bet again, but with a different running back. Probably doesn't work, but the upside is pretty fun if he's able to take this backfield over for even like half a season.
And your team, it's great because at least you cornered the market on the explosive Saints and Giants offenses in rookie drafts.
Yeah, you gotta really think about offensive quality and don't target those terrible franchises.
Kamara hasn't played a full season since his rookie year, so
that's what we're crossing our fingers for. A couple quick roundtable questions before I let everyone go here. Given this mock draft and what everyone's been writing up, Rich, let's begin with you. Who is a player you think you're just naturally going to be higher on based on how ADP is settling right now?
I think Igbuka, I think he's going to get dinged for the landing spot, probably.
Theo?
I think Tyler Warren, because I think there's some drafts he's going to fall into the second round, and I'll try to position myself to get a lot of him.
Crane?
And probably Fannin. I think the upside is really high. I think he could surprise this year and be somewhat productive, and then all of a sudden heading into next year we're like, hang on, this guy's set up to be a starting tight end, and he's basically a big slot.
Did he stay as your tight end 3 too?
Yeah, he stayed as my tight end 3. I mean, The other guys, it's just like you're betting on draft capital and pretty weak profiles. Some of them are athletic and stuff, but like the production's just really not that impressive. And Fannin, you know, there's caveats, but he's like the most efficient and the most productive tight end prospect we've ever seen, and he goes 3rd round.
Pat, when you came on with me, you said that you valued landing spot more than draft capital. Now you get draft capital, and then the landing spot you seem to kind of like. So yeah, you made a really good argument for him.
Yeah, I like it from a scheme perspective. Hopefully this coach can ride out not having a quarterback for this season after the Deshaun Watson trade. So, I mean, maybe that ultimately blows up. But yeah, I mean, I think I wanted to be in an offense that would value the versatility that he brings, you know, as a big slot who can block dudes. And that is where he landed. Like that's exactly why they took him.
I told Daigle when I was on with him, I like went under the hood and I was surprised at how good his run blocking metrics were. And then then I wanted to strip out all the max stuff. And I went to if you just isolated his Power 5 stuff, like against Penn State and against Texas A&M, he had like really high run blocking grades in those games. And I was like, this dude there's probably more here than people are assuming. Like, because people were talking about him not playing tight end at all. Like he was gonna be like an H-back, like Ben Sinnott, like Ben Sinnott was last year. And it's like, that's not what we look at. I comped him a lot to Isaiah Likely. I think he's a lot like Isaiah Likely. So who came out of Coastal Carolina, who it was really hard to judge the counting stats because they didn't have a lot of Power 5 opponents and stuff like that. But almost the same size and just the raw pass catching ability. Because at tight end, you either it's a have or have not for fantasy. You have a tight end or you're in the boat with everyone else where you're just like, we'll see what sticks. But like, that's the thing of like when we talk about some of these tight ends, it's just tight end premium. It might have been a better conversation if it was one cute or just regular to see where some of the other tight ends would have went. Because I mean, a lot of these guys I still think fall in the have not bucket, and if like they're not really worth picking versus like a running back or wide receiver if it's not tight end premium.
Yeah. He also produced, and Rich, I know you talk about this, that when these guys show up and produce in the big games, he did that.
Yeah, I care about that stuff. I should have
dominated those teams last year.
Yeah, and it was like late in the season in some case where like they knew what was going to happen. Like they're going to throw to Fannin the entire time, and they're like, "Yes, we will," and it'll work, and he'll be very efficient while we throw to him. So,
I'm also crossing my fingers Fannin is good because as I'm going through my own existential crisis still to this day about Luka being traded, like it has to sting still that you go from Travis Hunter to Mason Graham, like the most fun player in the NFL to the least sexiest option ever for Cleveland.
And then they get Shador too, so they could have had.
And then they get Shador, yeah.
I don't know. Guys, one question that has not pertained to this draft at all. I think we're all in the same ballpark of age. I come from the landline era. You all made some prank phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
We absolutely.
I saw the latest one was somebody wants him to be docked the draft pick because of it. Some of the outrages. Like, dude, was it cool? No, I'm not rooting for it, but
we're prank calling every business and everything. Like, man.
Did you use the boards like the Arnold Schwarzenegger board that was like get in the chopper?
But it reversed course. It's been a roller coaster because it was easy, and then caller ID.
Yeah,
made
Star
sure
69, bro. Star 69.
Yeah. But now it's actually, I would say it's easier because we all get unknown number calls and text across the board about like politics and finances and everything. They just pepper your phone out of nowhere.
A variety of scams. Yeah, prank calling is really taken off if you just.
So we're back. We are back in the era where crank calling is easy to do. Yeah. One more quick one before we get out of here. On the opposite end of that spectrum, I'm curious, Karain, let's start with you, who you will be underweight on just because ADP you're uncomfortable with or it's not settling in the correct range.
Who will I be underweight on? I might be a little underweight on Warren, I guess. I don't know. Honestly, you know who it is? It's probably Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins getting that landing spot and that draft capital it's like hard to, at this point, I'm like, hey, his prospect profile is a little overrated, and everyone's like, shut up. We don't care. We're betting on some really important parts of the profile in the draft capital and landing spot. And like his upside comp is kind of Nico Collins, and he goes and plays with Nico Collins, is, maybe forming a tandem with him. And so it's really fun. I was trying to be really aggressive on him on pre-draft best ball because I was actually kind of worried about this outcome where I would end up being behind market after a really good draft outcome. Because there's things about his profile that are like pretty concerning. He's a 4-year guy, didn't have a ton of production. He wasn't efficient I forget where he went for his first 2 years, but he wasn't really efficient there. And then he never really distinguished himself as like truly the guy ahead of Noel. And Noel's a solid prospect, but I liked that better. I was willing to put up with that a little more when I thought Noel might be drafted right next to Higgins. He falls to the 3rd round. So he's someone I think is actually a pretty low floor bet. But the ceiling is high enough to understand where he's going to go, where he goes, but I probably will be behind market.
Theo, same question to you.
For me, I love Judkins heading in. And he was a guy that in like pre-NFL draft, rookie drafts, I drafted a few times. But now that he's steamed up, I just prefer Travion Henderson, and I prefer Colston Loveland. And also Jackson Dart's going to be going in that similar range. So for me, I probably won't have nearly as much Quinshon Judkins, where before the NFL draft, I figured I'd have all the Quinshon Judkins. So probably Judkins, just because I'm a Henderson over Judkins guy.
And Rich.
I mean, Ashton Janty, because Papa doesn't have any one-on-ones. I know one-on-ones, man.
Got to get one, Rich. Not too late. Not too late.
Reeves, can you just like lean into it and start doing like anti-Genty takes, like overrated?
This guy ran in a blue field. No one could see him. Like, yeah.
All right, Rich, tell everyone.
Camouflage. He's had to wear camouflage on the field.
Tell everyone, Rich, where they can find your work without Ashton Genty.
Chartfootballanalysis.com. I've written up all these, rookies and have the rankings up. I even have all projections and season-long ranks for you BBM drafters that are already in them streets. You monsters, you that are already out there firing those bullets.
Corain, tell everyone where they can learn not to draft RJ Harvey in the 5th round of BBM.
Yeah, we have him in the 6th, so late around. But it's if you wanna draft the high end running backs like Ashton Genty, we do like him over at Legendary Upside. Have him up actually at 7th in our Best Ball Mania rankings now, which are live and you can upload to Underdog, and also have dynamic rankings with a tool called the Sidekick. It's all over at legendaryupside.com.
And Theo, since you were last on, you have since moved over to help all of our friends out at Fantasy Points with their Dynasty content. But what else do you have going on over there? Yeah,
so Fantasy Football Daily, Dynasty Life, my Dynasty show, those 2 podcasts I'm recording frequently. And then School of Scott, I do with Scott Barrett once a week. And then, all my articles and rankings are at Fantasy Points as well. So I pulled the switcheroo on you, Daigle, since the last appearance. But yeah, my rookie rankings article should be dropping any day now. You'll be able to access that just at fantasypoints.com.
Sounds great. I appreciate you all joining me all off season. That is the listeners. That is all my friends right here on the show. And again, this is it for the rookie edition of ETE. Mike Leone and Justin Herzig will be taking over probably in a few weeks, a month or so, getting back with all of the best ball content, which is live now at establishthorun.com. That's what we'll be finalizing throughout the week. Our rankings are up for BBM. So until then, good luck to everyone. And remember, be a little bit kinder. What's required. We'll see you next time.